It's my pleasure to introduce Ryan Hunidi, who is the owner of Hunidi Services, a managed services provider based in Edwardsville, serving clients across the United States and globally. With a robust background in cybersecurity and AI, Ryan leverages his extensive experience from working with some of the world's largest technology firms to deliver cutting-edge IT solutions tailored to small and medium-sized businesses. His experience ensures that clients receive top-tier service and innovative strategies to meet their unique technology needs. Please help me welcome Ryan.
Nice to meet everybody. So fun fact, the intro about myself, I used AI to write because it seemed like appropriate to do for a presentation on AI. Thanks. So I did it on purpose.
One more thing.
You want to share, right?
Yes. Okay, yep. There we are.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So thanks everybody for the invitation to speak. I was asked to talk today about AI or cybersecurity. I decided to speak about both because they actually interact with each other. So how many of you in here have an idea of what AI is besides ChatGPT? Okay. So I'm going to try to not go super deep technically, but basically what AI is it's the interpretation of trying to build the human brain that can think through a computer. As a geek, to me, that really means there's just a bunch of if this happens, then this happens statements, right? So we are not at the phase of AI where it can think for itself and everything else. I personally don't know that we'll ever get there, but that's what they're working towards. So just wanted to level set on what AI is. From my background in AI, as the owner of Hunidi Services, I have a lot of customers who are wanting to figure out how can we leverage AI in business. So there are different ways that you can leverage AI. For example, if you have a website and you have customers that want to learn about you, you could have an AI chatbot read your site and then be available to answer questions instead of having people call in to say, what time do you open today? Or I have Edison's as a customer, so we're working on something for them where, okay, well, do you have birthday parties? What size are your rooms? So they could either comb through the website to find it, just ask the question, it searches the website and presents it to you. There are several different AI companies that exist right now. So Microsoft, IBM, Google, and then OpenAI. So OpenAI claims to have kind of started the AI revolution. In reality, in the 50s, if you remember, IBM started really AI. They just didn't call it AI at the time. They had Watson. And then the genius marketing people at IBM just decided to plaster Watson across everything, which kind of confused people. But AI really started then whenever the Watson bot beat somebody at chess, beat somebody on Jeopardy. It's can a computer think equal to or better than a human? So the next thing I thought I would focus on is how do businesses use AI? So most businesses understand AI as what most of you raised your hand for, which is ChatGPT. And let me type something in and ask ChatGPT to rewrite it for me so I don't have to, right? How many of you have done that? I do it in every email I write anymore because it's much easier. But AI can do much more. So if you're a large business, so like an insurance agency, you could actually take what's called a learning model. So a large language learning model, that's kind of the brain of AI. And you define within that model, what do you want it to do and how do you want it to think? So if you're an insurance agency and you had, let's say, a catastrophe down in Florida and you didn't have enough agents to adjust, you could actually build an app where people could upload the photos and you could try to do a digital adjustment. That's just a relevant example now. I've had customers in the past, like utility companies that want to use AI and drone footage, so like visual AI, to fly across all of the power lines in Illinois and figure out, do we have any damage? Do we need to repair anything? And in the nuclear plants, here's what it's supposed to look like. Here's the picture that Spot the dog took. Is there any deviation, and do we have a problem we need to go look at? So from an AI standpoint, it can be visual, it can be sound, it can be written text, or it could comb through data that you have for your business. You're going to probably see a lot of software that you use on the day-to-day starting to claim that they have AI embedded. And at the end of the day, some of them do, some of them don't. They're just throwing AI on top of it to make you buy it. Microsoft, for example, they have invested heavily in ChatGPT and OpenAI, and they've built what they call Microsoft Copilot. So this is kind of where I always give presentations, by the way, to customers, and I never follow my slides. So you don't really have to look at them if you don't want to. This is where cybersecurity and AI kind of converge. So let's take a financial firm, for example. Let's say you have employees that are doing financial analysis. They're using Excel. They need to figure out, what type of formula should I use? Well, some employees might go take all of that financial data, copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, create a formula that gives me the answer to X, Y, and Z. So what do you think happens if you're using a public model like ChatGPT and you paste that data in there? Any idea? Yeah, so you're 100% right. That data now becomes a part of OpenAI's large learning model. You no longer own that data. So for example, what we're doing with my clients, we're actually blocking access to ChatGPT. Your employees are not allowed to cheat at doing their job and give your data away, right? The way we explain it to employees is, well, if you can copy and paste it, I don't need you to copy and paste it. I can write a script that can copy and paste it. So you've now just told your employer they don't need you as an employee, right? So that's how we portray it to an employee compared to how we portray it to the owners, that all of your data and your client's information is not secure. More on the cybersecurity standpoint, that's something that in my opinion, has become more and more relevant to small and medium businesses since COVID. You know, prior to COVID, hackers were really focused on the Anheuser-Busch's, the Express Scripts, the large companies. Post-COVID, it seems like if you're a one-man shop, you have the ability to get hacked, right? So this is another place where AI and cybersecurity overlap. And I'll give you an example. So I have a customer in Texas that has a worldwide development team, and they travel quite a bit. So we ask that anytime an employee travels, they have to open a ticket and let us know, because we have AI tools that are looking at every login that employee A makes into Microsoft 365. And if they were in Texas today and 3 hours later they log in from the UK, we're blocking them. If they are in Texas 90% of the time and they're in Italy next week, we block them because nobody told us that they're supposed to be in Italy, and we don't know if somebody's actually trying to grab their information and take it. Another part of cybersecurity, something that most small and medium businesses push back on, is two-factor authentication. So if any of you, have bank accounts, they pretty much force you to use 2FA. Microsoft and Google encourage it, but they don't force you. But I've had a lot of business owners say, I don't need it. Nobody's going to hack me, and I don't want it. And this comes from like CFOs and CEOs that they're literally the two people that would actually get hacked, not Joe Blow, the employee. So basic cybersecurity practices enable basic security. So 2FA, strong passwords, password rotation. Make sure that you have a good antivirus. Make sure that your employees are not sharing data that they shouldn't share. I would assume most of your businesses are using Google or Microsoft to store data these days. Show of hands, you guys using that stuff like SharePoint, OneDrive, right? So let's say you don't have proper cybersecurity set up, and one of your employees just creates a link that has access to all of your company's information and sends it to somebody they're supposed to, but that person gets hacked because you're not in control of that person's cybersecurity. Now that person that hacked your client has access to all of your data because you have not set up proper cybersecurity around your corporate environment, saying only authorized people that have logged in can get to my data. The next thing that is newer is something called managed detection and response, which basically is all of this data that I've been talking about, all of these security events that are being collected. AI looks at them and starts to look for trends of cyber attacks, of malfeasance, whatever that we can try to find, and then sends alerts to my team to go in and investigate and lock them out. So from a high level standpoint, in my opinion, cybersecurity and AI interact quite a bit. So what are the impacts of cyber threats to your business? People usually think of financial losses as the biggest one. I would ask more about your reputation. So when I worked for some of the largest IT firms in the world, like HP and IBM, they would love to use scare tactics. I'm not a fan of that, but their question would be, how would you like to be recognized in the newspaper? Do you want to be in the newspaper because you were hacked and all of your clients' data was exposed? Or would you like to be in the newspaper for a positive reason? I had a state as a customer, I won't mention which one, that was breached. And actually a newspaper found the vulnerability and went to the governor and said, this is what we found. And the governor ignored them. And about a week later, the site was hacked, which had all of the teachers' information for the entire state, all of their retirement information, and it was all served up on the website in plain text. So the next day, that same newspaper wrote a full-page article about how they alerted the government and the government ignored it and didn't do anything. So to me, that's a perfect example of how do you want to be recognized in the newspaper, right? So at this point, from an AI cybersecurity standpoint, I usually like to open it to questions to figure out what people would like to know about. So I'm happy to answer any questions about AI or cybersecurity, right?
Probably won't look at it. Doesn't always change passwords around very well.
No way.
Right. Can you give maybe just a real high level on something like LastPass and how that is supposed to work, kind of in theory, and how?
Yep.
it would use it?
So password managers is what LastPass is. I would actually never use LastPass. They've been hacked off the face of the earth like 3 times, so I would not use them. Definitely would not use them. So anybody that has an iPhone and just updated to the latest iOS, Apple actually is giving you a free password manager. If you look and you've upgraded, there's a new app on your phone called Passwords, and you can use it, and it's free, and it will work on Apple, Windows, Chrome, Edge. But basically the purpose of said password managers is 2 things. 1, store all of your passwords so you don't forget them. 2, to generate extremely complex passwords so that nobody can hack them through brute force. If I were to use a password manager, my top choice is 1Password. If you're not looking to pay for anything, then I would do Apple Passwords, because Apple is probably one of the most secure companies in the world. They tell the government to pound sand when the government asks them to release data. So out of those 2, that answer the question?
That is Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator or Password Manager, or is it something different?
Well, it's technically both, because Microsoft like to put their feet in everything. It's really a 2-factor authentication app. And ironically, 2-factor authentication is now being compromised, not just at Microsoft. So most companies are moving towards passkeys, which can be stored in the password apps. But 2-factor authenticator, if you guys remember, a long time ago, you used to carry probably RSA keys. I know banks handed them out to get to your bank accounts. That's all an authenticator app is. It's doing the exact same thing that that little piece of hardware does, or those text messages that you get do. So those can actually be intercepted. And that's how these 2FAs are getting hacked. And that is why over the past year, you've seen most major websites you go to will say, did you want to create a passkey today? Would you like to use a passkey? Because then you have a username, a password, a passkey, and 2-factor to make sure nobody can break into your account.
You talked about rotating passwords. How often would you recommend folks generally like remind themselves to update passwords?
Most corporate policy is to update it every 60 to 90 days and not allow you to use the same password over 14 times. So you have to know 14 different passwords and then you can reuse one.
But this should come out of the recommendations, you know, not recommending that for vacation, because it's people have to write them down, so that's never change all. That adds to the security thing.
Yeah, Microsoft has said that. And I actually agree with them, but SOC 2 and ISO have not changed their standards. So, but I personally think the 2-factor and the passkey, and if you have an extremely long and complex password and you don't put it on a Post-it note on your monitor, you're gonna probably be good.
Yeah, you won't be getting your shit.
Right, yeah.
You can't listen to
So I'm you know me, I'm a large.
No,
It sounds a lot like the beginning of Terminator.
yeah.
How do you see these, this artificial intelligence coming up, and I don't know, making it more difficult, locking people out automatically? Do you think stuff can get into there, or?
I mean, I can tell you a lot of my customers are not thrilled with me because we're locking them out quite a bit. But I'll tell you 2 stories. There's one story where I have a local customer, financial firm, and somebody tried to impersonate the owner and send an email and say, redirect this $800,000 deposit to this account instead of the one that you're supposed to send it to. Their systems had not been hacked. The bank's systems had actually been hacked, and they were gathering all this information through the bank's email. My team and I had implemented something where it notified everybody internally if like Bob worked for the company and tried to email Julie and it didn't come from an internal server, it would show this is an external email. That is the only reason that they didn't transfer the $800,000 is because they saw that. I had another potential customer out of St. Louis, property management company, come to me and say, we were just hacked. We had to pay $80,000. I'd like to know how much it would cost to secure my environment. And it was quite expensive because they had like 10-year-old computers and no real security. And his answer was, you know what, I'll just have the insurance pay it every couple of years. I'm fine with it. To which I wanted to say, well, actually the insurance company is going to drop you, but that's fine. So the point is the AI is locking people out a lot more. It is a nuisance. I would rather be locked out or lock somebody out than have somebody's company information breached. And I'm happy to get yelled at by whatever company owner or employee because I'm ultimately liable.
Say I sign up to do business online with a company or an app that I think is reputable and safe.
Hmm.
But down the road, they get bought out by a foreign entity, they might be suspect. How much am I at risk?
It just really depends. So every part of the world except the United States has a policy that says your data has to reside in your country. It's called GDPR. So for example, let's say if somebody from the UK purchased that company, they would actually be required by their law, not by United States law, to maintain servers in the United States so that that doesn't traverse to another country. I would probably say it depends on who buys it. Usually when companies are bought, they're going to be bought by a larger IT firm or some venture capitalist firm, and both of them have very good cybersecurity policies.
So you're saying they would have to move servers to this country?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are literal laws. The only place in the United States that has something similar, I think, is California. All states, for state government, actually require the data to sit in a data center inside of that state, but they don't do it for private companies. It's not required.
OpenAI built on Linux open source code.
It probably runs on Linux servers, but it's a language learning model. And OpenAI was founded on the idea of open source. However, they've taken it a little way more closed source so they can make more money. So yeah, But if I were a business, I would not use OpenAI. I would use Google Gemini. I would use Microsoft Copilot. Those would probably be the two things that I use because at least your data is contained in your tenant.
How are those companies monetizing the product? For seats?
Like Copilot right now is $30 a seat per user. It gives you the ability to have Copilot in every Microsoft product and basically do the same thing as if you go to chatgpt.com. I also generated the presentation for today using Copilot. And I said, here's my outline, write the slides for me and put the pictures in. And it did it. It took about 3 minutes. Yeah.
So it's interesting how many times they can hack different ways and still get to it. So I have a client who was in Germany for Oktoberfest.
Yep.
I received an email last week that said, it looked like it came from him.
Mhm.
And it said, you know, we're at Oktoberfest. My wife found some art today. Blah, blah, blah. Please, can you wire $15,000 to, and gave me an account number and everything else. Don't call to verify because we're 7 hours ahead and we've had trouble sleeping, so I don't want you to wake us up. Well, I called him anyway.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that three other banks that he deals with received the same email.
Mhm.
Yeah, he goes, I'm glad you got that. He goes, he called, I didn't know that then. He called those other places. I was the only one that could call them. One place had it actually ready to go.
Of course it did.
Two places hadn't, but one of his banks in the Chicago area had it ready to go. They had changed, it was his email, except they had changed, they used a 0 instead of
To the
an O.
no. Yeah. So there's several ways that could have happened. One is AT&T was hacked. They denied it for about 10 years. So there's a huge amount of customers' data out there. There's a company I partner with for businesses and for personal that you pay them a yearly fee and they go out and try to remove your data from everywhere. The other thing, which none of the networks will admit, but it's true, is if you go to certain areas and you're on your cell phone, people are sitting out there intercepting that signal. So like if I go to Florida, I'll start getting these random calls from Florida numbers. When I leave Florida, I don't. They're detecting that you're registered on the local network and they start trying to call out. So, I mean, your data has to be secure, right? And the amount of money that you spend to do it each year would probably be worth it compared to what it would be if you were breached. Any other?
Should I be able to sleep comfortably using LifeLock or is there something better?
They're all good, right? I mean, LifeLock is good. Identity Guard is the one that I use, but a lot of them I found out are actually owned by the same parent company and use the same technology. They just put a different front end on it. So I would say most of them that are owned by a reputable company should be fine. Any other questions? All right. Thanks, guys.